The Queensland Government has announced billions of dollars in asset sales in its budget handed down this afternoon.
It's the Newman Government's third budget, and $25 million from the asset sales are to be used to pay down debt. More than $8 billion will be put into an investment fund for projects such as new schools, road and rail infrastructure.
Well, for more, Queensland political reporter Chris O'Brien is live from Brisbane. And Chris O'Brien, which assets is the government planning to sell off?
Kim, there are a couple of power stations belonging to CS Energy and the Stanwell Corporation which are on the list for sale. In addition to that, some ports, the ports of Gladstone and Townsville and the Mount Isa rail line will be leased for long-term periods, perhaps up to 99 years. That, the government estimates, could earn them about $5 or $6 billion. By the way, this plan would need to go to an election. They're not going to do it until the election due in March next year. But of the $33 billion you talked about, by far the biggest component is from an unusual sort of asset sale, not a sale at all in fact, but investment. Energex, Ergon and Powerlink are the big ticket items. They won't be sold per se, but investors will be invited in, Kim, to help share the capital expenses of those companies. Opponents of asset sales say that's privatisation by just another term, but the government says no, it will retain 100% ownership. So this plan has been outlined today on Budget Day 2014. It's not actually part of the budget as such, but it has been released today, and if the plan goes ahead, it'll be after next March's election.
All right, and Chris O'Brien, the federal opposition has been combing through the budget. Bill Shorten has told the Parliament just a short time ago that the Queensland Government has actually cut $16 billion from its health and education budget because of the ripple effects of the federal budget. Is that true?
The figures are very difficult to comb through at this early stage. I admire Mr Shorten's early work there, Kim. In fact, Treasurer Tim Nicholls has stressed that the state government has kept up funding for both of those issues, despite the pressures of the federal government. That's not to say, though, that there hasn't been some criticism of the feds from Tim Nicholls in his speech this afternoon. He singled out health, in fact, saying that's the biggest pressure that the federal government has put on them because of their cuts. They do think, though, that they will be able to maintain services at least to a creditable level for the next year or two.
Today's budget continues delivering on our promises and our commitments to restore our great state's finances. I can report to the House that today's budget shows we are meeting all of those commitments made that February day just over 2 years ago when we released our economic plan. We are on track to deliver an operating surplus of $188 million in 2014-2015. We will deliver a fiscal surplus in 2015-16, the first in a decade. Fiscal surpluses are also predicted in each year of the forward forecasts. No longer will Queensland have to go cap in hand to financiers, meekly asking for loans. We will have stopped the long descent into debt that Labor charted with its locked-in deficits of the last half dozen years.
Queensland Treasurer Tim Nicholls there. Chris O'Brien, our Queensland political reporter, is live from Brisbane. And Chris, with any budget we always look for that so-called hip pocket nerve, and I understand that seniors might have a few things to worry about.
Again, apparently the fault of the Commonwealth here, Kim, because the federal government cut $50 million from the amount of money it gives to Queensland to help with rebates for pensioners and seniors, for electricity concessions and gas concessions and so on. That's about 15% of the amount of money that the state pays out. The state reckons it lifted its own component but wasn't able to absorb that entire 15% cut. So there will be some devil in the detail there, but it does seem as though pensioners and seniors will face some sort of cut to their concessions in the next few months.
All right, Chris O'Brien, our Queensland political reporter, thank you.
You're welcome, Kim.